Hey, squirrel listeners, of course I went to sleep in my comfy chair. I was about to let this day go by and not get back to the chapter we were in, or somewhere in the middle. Let me go back and get the last paragraph I read, and this was in Rilla's journal. 11th December 1917. Wonderful news came today. The British troops captured Jerusalem yesterday. We ran up the flag and some of Gertrude's old sparkle came back to her for a moment. After all, she said, it is worthwhile to live in the days which see the object of the Crusades attained. The ghost of all the Crusaders might have crowded the walls of Jerusalem last night with Coeur de Lion at their head. And I probably screwed that up. Susan had cause for satisfaction also. I'm so thankful I can pronounce Jerusalem and Hebron, she said. They give me a real comfortable feeling after a couple other names I can't say. Well, you've got the Turks on the run at least. And Venice is safe, and Lord Lansdowne is not to be taken seriously, and I see no reason why we should be downhearted. Jerusalem, the meteor flag of England floats over you. The crescent is gone. How Walter would have thrilled over that. And the next entry is 18th December 1917. Yesterday the election came off. In the evening, Mother and Susan and Gertrude and I gathered in the living room and waited in the breathless suspense. Father having gone down to the village. We had no way of hearing the news, for Carter Flagg's store is not on our line, and when we tried to get it, Central always answered that the line was busy, as no doubt it was, for everybody for miles around was trying to get Carter's store for the same reason we were. About 10 o'clock, Gertrude went to the phone and happened to catch someone from over harbor talking to Carter Flagg. Gertrude shamelessly listened in and got for her comforting what eavesdroppers are proverbially supposed to get, to wit, unpleasant hearing. The Union government had done nothing in the West. We looked at each other in dismay. If the government had failed to carry the West, it was defeated. Canada is disgraced in the eyes of the world, said Gertrude bitterly. If everybody was like the Mark Crawfords over harbor, this would not have happened, groaned Susan. They locked their uncle up in the barn this morning and would not let him out until he promised to vote Union. That is what I call effective argument, Mrs. Dr. dear. Gertrude and I couldn't rest after all that. We walked the floor until our legs gave out and we had to sit down perforce. Mother knitted away as steadily as clockwork and pretended to be calm and serene, pretended so well that we were all deceived and envious until the next day, when I caught her raveling out 4 inches of her sock. She had knit that far past where the heel should have begun. That's probably what I would do. Fall asleep on it. It was 12 before Father came home. He stood in the doorway and looked at us and we looked at him. He did not dare ask what the news was. Then he said that it was Laurier who had done nothing in the West and that the Union government was in with the big majority. Gertrude clapped her hands. I wanted to laugh and cry. Mother's eyes flashed with their old-timey starriness, and Susan emitted a queer sound between a gasp and a whoop. This will not comfort the Kaiser much, she said. Then we went to bed, but were too excited to sleep. Really, as Susan said solemnly this morning, Mrs. Dr. dear, I think politics are too strenuous for women. 31st December 1917. Our 4th war. Christmas is over. We are trying to gather up some courage wherewith to face another year of it. Germany has, for the most part, been victorious all summer, and now they say she has all her troops from the Russian front ready for a big push in the spring. Sometimes it seems to me that we just cannot live through the winter waiting for that. I had a great batch of letters from overseas this week. Shirley is at the front now, too, and writes about about it all as coolly and matter-of-factly as he used to write of football at Queen's. Carl wrote that it had been raining for weeks and that nights in the trenches always made him think of the night of long ago when he did penance in the graveyard for running away from Henry Warren's ghost. Carl's letters are always full of jokes and bits of fun. They had great rat hunt the night before he wrote, spearing rats with their bayonets, and he got the best bag and won the prize. He has a tame rat that knows him and sleeps in his pocket at night. Oh, rats don't worry Carl as much as some people. He was always chummy with all little beasts. He says he is making a study of the habits of the trench rat and means to write a treatise on it some day that will make him famous. Ken wrote a short letter. His letters are all rather short now, and he doesn't often slip in those dear little sudden sentences I love so much. Sometimes I think he has forgotten all about the night he was here to say goodbye, and then there will be just a line or word that makes me think he remembers and always will remember. For instance, today's letter hadn't a thing in it that mightn't have been written to any girl, except that he signed himself as your Kenneth instead of yours, Kenneth, as he usually does. Now, did he leave that S off intentionally, or was it only carelessness? I shall lie awake half the night wondering. He's a captain now. I'm proud and glad. And yet Captain Ford sounds so horribly far away and high up. Ken and Captain Ford seem like two different persons. I may be practically engaged to Ken. Mother's opinion on that point is my stay and bulwark, but I can't be to Captain Ford. And Jim is a lieutenant now, won his promotion on the field. He sent me a snapshot taken in his new uniform. He looked thin and old. My boy brother Jim. Been eating cookies. Boy brother Jim. I can't forget Mother's face when I showed it to her. That, my little Jim, the baby of the old house of dreams, was all she said. There was a letter from Faith, too. She is doing VAD work in England and writes hopefully and brightly. I think she's almost happy. She saw Jim on his last leave, and she is so near him she could go to him if he were wounded. That means so much to her. Oh, if I were only with her. My work is here at home. I know Walter wouldn't have wanted me to leave Mother, and in everything I try to keep faith with him, even to the little details of daily life. Walter died for Canada. I must live for her. That is what he asked me to do. 28th January 1918. I shall anchor my storm-tossed soul to the British fleet and make a batch of bran biscuits, said Susan today to Cousin Sophia, who had come in with some weird tale of a new and all-conquering submarine just launched by Germany. But Susan is a somewhat disgruntled woman at present, owing to the regulations regarding cookery. Her loyalty to the Union government is being sorely tried. It surmounted the first strain gallantly. When the order about flour came, Susan said quite cheerfully, I'm an old dog to be learning new tricks, but I shall learn to make war bread, if it will help defeat the Huns. But the later suggestions went against Susan's grain. Had it not been for Father's decree, I think she would have snapped her fingers at Sir Robert Borden. Talk about trying to make bricks without straw, Mrs. Doctor dear. How am I to make a cake without butter or sugar? It cannot be done. Not cake that is cake. Of course, one could make a slab, Mrs. Doctor dear, and we cannot even camouflage it with a little icing. Camouflage it is how it's spelled. To think that I should have lived to see the day when a government at Ottawa should step into my kitchen and put me on rations. Susan would give the last drop of her blood for her king and country, but to surrender her beloved recipes is a very different, much more serious matter. I had letters from Nan and Di too, or rather notes. They're too busy to write letters for exams are looming up. They will graduate in arts this spring. I'm evidently to be the dunce of the family, but somehow I never had any hankering for a college course, and even now it doesn't appeal to me. I'm afraid I'm rather devoid of ambition. There's only one thing I really want to be, and I don't know if I'll be it or not. If not, I don't want to be anything, but I shan't write it down. It is all right to think about it, but as Cousin Sophia would say, it might be brazen to write it down. I will write it down. I won't be cowed by the conventions. And, Cousin Sophia, I want to be Kenneth Ford's wife. There now. I've just looked in the glass, and I hadn't the sign of a blush on my face. I suppose I'm not a properly constructed damsel at all. I was going to see little dog Monday today. He's grown quite stiff and rheumatic, but there he sat, waiting for the train. He thumped his tail and looked pleadingly into my eyes. When will Jim come? He seemed to say. Oh, dog Monday, there is no answer to that question, and there is, as yet, no answer to the other which we are all constantly asking. What will happen when Germany strikes again on the Western Front, her one great last blow for victory? 1st March, 1918. What will spring bring? Gertrude said today. I dread it as I never dreaded spring before. Do you suppose there will ever again come a time when life will be free from fear? For almost 4 years we have lain down with fear and risen up with it. It has been the unbidden guest at every meal, the unwelcome companion at every gathering. Hindenburg says he will be in Paris on 1st April, sighed Cousin Sophia. Hindenburg? There's no power in pen and ink to express the contempt which Susan infused into that name. Has he forgotten what day the 1st of April is? Hindenburg has kept his word hitherto, said Gertrude, as gloomily as Cousin Sophia herself could have said it. Yes, fighting against the Russians and Romanians, retorted Susan. Wait you till he comes up against the British and French, not to speak of the Yankees, who are getting there as fast as they can, and will no doubt give a good account of themselves. You said just the same thing before Mons, Susan, I reminded her. Hindenburg says he will spend 1,000,000 lives to break the Allied front, said Gertrude. At such a price he must purchase some successes, and how can we live through them, even if he is baffled in the end? These past 2 months when we have been crouching and waiting for the blow to fall have seemed as long as all the preceding months of the war put together. I work all day feverishly and waken at 3 o'clock at night to wonder if the Iron Legions have struck at last. It is then I see Hindenburg in Paris and Germany triumphant. I never see her so at any other time than that accursed hour. Susan looked dubious over Gertrude's adjective, but evidently concluded that the A saved the situation. I wish it were possible to take some magic draft and go to sleep for the next 3 months and then awaken to find Armageddon over, said Mother almost impatiently. It's not often that Mother slumps into a wish like that, or at least the verbal expression of it. Mother has changed a great deal since that terrible day in September when we knew that Walter would not come back, but she has always been brave and patient. Now it seemed as if she had reached the limit of her endurance. Susan went over to Mother and touched her shoulder. Do not you be frightened or downhearted, Mrs. Dr. dear, she said gently. I felt somewhat that way myself last night, and I rose from my bed and lighted my lamp and opened my Bible, and what do you think was the first verse my eyes lighted upon? It was, "And they shall fight against thee, but they shall not prevail against thee, for I am with thee, saith the Lord of hosts, to deliver thee." I am not gifted in the way of dreaming as Miss Oliver is, but I knew then and there, Mrs. Dr. dear, that it was a manifest leading. and that Hindenburg will never see Paris, so I read no further but went back to my bed, and I did not waken at 3 o'clock or at any other hour before morning. I say that verse Susan read over and over again to myself. The Lord of hosts is with us, and the spirits of all just men made perfect, and even the legions and guns that Germany is massing on the Western Front must break against such a barrier. This is in certain uplifted moments. But when other moments come, I feel like Gertrude, that I cannot endure any longer this awful and ominous hush before the coming storm. 23rd March 1918. Armageddon has begun, the last great fight of all. Is it, I wonder? Yesterday I went down to the post office for the mail. It was a dull, bitter day. The snow was gone, but the gray, lifeless ground was frozen hard, and a biting wind was blowing. The whole glen landscape was ugly and hopeless. Then I got the paper with its big black headlines. Germany struck on the 21st. She makes big claims of guns and prisoners taken. General Haig reports that severe fighting continues. I don't like the sound of that last expression. We all find we cannot do any work that requires concentration of thought, so we all knit furiously because we can do that mechanically. At least the dreadful waiting is over, the horrible wondering where and when the blow will fall. It has fallen, but they shall not prevail against us. Oh, what is happening on the Western Front tonight as I write this, sitting here in my room with my journal before me? Jims is asleep in his crib, and the wind is wailing around the window. Over my desk hangs Walter's picture, looking at me with his beautiful deep eyes. The Mona Lisa he gave me the last Christmas he was home hangs on the side of it, and on the other a framed copy of the Piper. It seems to me that I can hear Walter's voice repeating it, that little poem into which he put his soul, and which will therefore live forever, carrying Walter's name on through the future of our land. Everything about me is calm and peaceful and homey. Walter seems very near me. If I could just sweep aside the thin, wavering little veil that hangs between, I could see him, just as he saw the Pied Piper the night before Courcelette. Over there in France tonight, does the line hold? That's all chapter 27. Ready for that war to end. Chapter 28 is called Black Sunday. And we'll read it tomorrow on Sunday. Easter Sunday. White Sunday. Oh, mercy. Y'all have a good night and a good sleep. And I'll see you tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed the live today. I just didn't feel like being by myself on the screen up there, and I enjoyed having friends so much. It was so great to have Dana, Wanderlust Dana, and Dooley, and Jaxie May, and AJ, and Miss Julie, and everybody that came up, and then all you guys that were in the chat. Oh, it was just glorious, and I hope I'll see y'all tomorrow. And don't forget about leaving a comment on Friday's live if you want to try to win this book. I've still got to get the doggone rules in that I can't find I can't remember how long it's been since I gave away that other book to find the video so I can copy and paste. Oh my mercies. I just go on and on with y'all. I see you later, and be sweet, don't be ugly. See you tomorrow. Love ya. Bye bye.